The wind howled across the dry plains as the old pickup truck rattled down the dirt road, dust trailing behind like a ghost that refused to be left behind. Under the brim of a weathered hat, with his face partly hidden by shadow and sun, the cowboy didn't speak much. Just a nod here and there. His boots, cracked and caked with dried mud, told stories of long roads and lonely nights. To the townspeople, he was just another drifter, quiet, rough around the edges, probably chasing the fading scent of a life gone wrong. But what no one knew, what she didn't know, was that this silent man with sorrow in his eyes and calloused hands held deeds to more land than any man west of the Mississippi, and a heart that hadn't dared to love since it was shattered years ago. Before we dive deeper into this heartfelt journey of second chances, if you believe in the power of kindness, in love's quiet return, and the beauty of redemption, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your support helps us continue telling stories that matter. She was late again. Not that anyone in the sleepy town of Blue Ridge expected punctuality from Ellie Monroe. Running the last family-owned diner in 3 counties meant burnt coffee at dawn, stubborn toasters, and a dozen farmers waiting with gruff patience. Her father had passed 3 winters ago, and she had refused to sell the place despite offers that could have given her an easier life. She stayed, for the memories, the promise she made to her mother, and because something inside her believed she hadn't yet finished what this place had started in her heart. That morning had been especially chaotic. The power blinked out briefly, the water tank sprung a leak, and one of her waitresses didn't show up. So when the stranger walked in around 10, silent as a shadow and looking like a man carved out of sun-baked earth, Ellie barely looked up. He sat in the far corner. Alone. Ordered black coffee and eggs. Ate slow, as if he had nowhere to be. That became a routine. He returned the next morning. Then the next. Always the same. Black coffee, eggs, no chatter. Some folks whispered he was probably broke. Others said he might be hiding from something. Ellie didn't care. He paid in cash, tipped generously, and never caused trouble. But one day, curiosity got the better of her. It was late afternoon, most of the regulars gone, and she noticed him lingering by the window, staring out at the hills like they were calling him home. She wiped her hands on her apron, poured herself a coffee, and slid into the booth across from him without asking. "You always look like you've lost something," she said softly, watching his eyes flinch for the briefest second. "Or maybe someone." He didn't answer right away. Just took a sip of coffee, eyes still fixed on the golden hills. "Maybe both," he murmured finally. There was something about the way he said it that made her throat tighten. Like every word carried weight, memories too heavy to speak of. She didn't press. Just sat with him in the silence, which somehow felt sacred, not awkward. His name, she learned later, was Jace. Jace Walker. A name that meant nothing to her, then. As weeks passed, Ellie found herself looking for him before she even unlocked the doors. She didn't want to. She told herself he was just another customer. But her heart betrayed her every time he smiled, every time his eyes lit up at some simple kindness she offered, like refilling his mug before he asked or sliding him a piece of pie, on the house. There was a stillness about Jace. Like a man who had known war, not the kind with guns, but the kind that happens inside you when love walks away and never comes back. He never spoke about his past. Never bragged or boasted. But his hands gave him away. They weren't just rough from ranch work, they were hands that had built things. Big things. And the way he studied the land, the sky, the way he paused before speaking, it wasn't just the silence of a drifter. It was the watchfulness of a man who owned his world, but never flaunted it. One day, trouble came to Blue Ridge. A real estate developer, suited and smug, rolled into town with plans to buy up land, including the pasture behind Ellie's diner. She'd never paid attention to the field, it was just a stretch of grass and wildflowers. But now they wanted to build a mini mall, and the diner would lose its back view, its quiet. Worse, the town would lose another piece of itself. Ellie stood up at the town hall meeting, voice trembling but fierce. This town doesn't need another chain store. We need our peace, our history. We need to keep what little we have left. The room applauded, but the developer smirked. Unless you own that pasture, Miss Monroe, I'm afraid it's out of your hands. That's when Jace stood. He had been sitting in the back, as always, unnoticed. But when he rose, the room fell silent. His voice was calm, almost too calm. I own that land. The developer laughed. And who might you be? Jace took off his hat, revealing storm-gray eyes and a face lined with silent stories. Jace Walker, he said simply. My family's held titles here since before the railroad came. That pasture, and half the state you're trying to pave over, belongs to me. Gasps. Murmurs. Ellie's heart thundered in her chest. The developer stumbled back. Wait, the Jace Walker. Jace nodded once. The land stays untouched. Meeting's over. He walked out, hat in hand, without another word. That night, Ellie sat alone in the diner, lights dimmed, staring at the field behind her place, now knowing it was a gift, a shield, from the man she thought had nothing. He returned a few days later, not as a stranger, but still carrying the same quiet humility. You should have told me, she whispered, standing behind the counter. He shrugged. I liked being invisible for a while. Gave me peace. She crossed the room, slowly, heart pounding. Why here? She asked. Why stay? Jace looked at her then, really looked, and something broke open in his face, a tenderness that had been locked away for years. Because you saw me before you knew what I had. And it's been a long time since anyone saw the man, not the money. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't want to fall for a drifter, she whispered. I didn't want to fall at all, he replied. But fall they did, slowly, sweetly, like old trees leaning into each other after a storm. He started helping at the diner, fixing the sink, rebuilding the back porch. She made him laugh again. He made her feel safe again. Their love didn't roar in, it settled like a warm fire on a cold night. Years of silence were healed by pie, coffee, and shared mornings in a town too small for secrets and too kind for judgments. He hadn't loved in years. But when he finally did again, it wasn't with grand gestures or luxury. It was with presence, with patience, and with the kind of love that rebuilds what life tried to break. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that love can find you no matter how far you've fallen, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Leave a comment to let us know how this story made you feel. Your support helps us keep spreading light through every tale. Speech balloon special request. Before you leave, comment below. Everyone deserves a second chance. Let's fill the comments with hope and kindness. Certainly. Let's continue and deepen the story with more emotion, more cinematic layers, and a truly powerful close to reach. That 6,000 word target feel. They say time changes everything, but sometimes it's not time, it's a person. In the months that followed Jace's quiet reveal, life in Blue Ridge began to stir in small, beautiful ways. Word had spread, of course, people began to realize the man they once dismissed as a drifter cowboy actually held the title to valleys, mountains, and lakes that stretched farther than their maps could measure. But what struck Ellie the most wasn't the reverence others began to show Jace, it was how unchanged he remained. He still wore the same dusty boots. Still helped Mrs. Collins fix her porch swing without charging a dime. Still came into the diner before sunrise and sipped his coffee by the window like it was the only moment that mattered in the world. Ellie often watched him from the kitchen. Sometimes she'd just stand there, flower on her cheek and heart in her throat, wondering how someone so powerful could carry such gentleness. He didn't use his wealth as a weapon. He used it as a whisper, quietly buying out corporations before they could destroy the natural beauty of the town, investing in scholarships for the local kids, restoring the old church roof without ever taking credit. And still, Jace never asked for anything in return. Until one night. The sky was dark, heavy with stars, and the town had long gone to sleep. Ellie was locking up the diner when she found him leaning against the railing out back, staring into the hills. She walked up quietly, the air crisp, her heart already aching with the weight of something she didn't understand yet. "Beautiful night," she said. Jace nodded. "They always are when I'm here." Silence. Then, softly, "Do you miss it? The life before?" He turned to her, eyes steady. "No. But you had everything, didn't you? You could have lived in cities. Been in boardrooms. Made headlines." He smiled faintly. "I had everything, except peace." She swallowed, emotion tightening her throat. "And now, I have peace, and maybe something more." He looked at her then, truly looked, and Ellie felt like her soul had been seen. "I don't want to be just a man passing through your life, Ellie. I don't want to stand by that window every morning without knowing if I'll ever hold you at night." Her heart stuttered. "You deserve someone who's whole," she whispered. "I'm still putting myself back together." "So am I," he said. "Maybe we don't need to be whole to begin something. Maybe we just need to be willing." A tear slid down her cheek. And under the canopy of stars, with nothing fancy and no grand declaration, Jace reached for her hand. She didn't resist. From that night on, it was no longer just a diner with creaky floors and burnt toast mornings. It became a home, a sanctuary. He started planting wildflowers in the back field with Ellie. She taught him how to flip pancakes without burning them. They laughed more, fell quietly, deeply, truly in love. But life, as always, didn't stay quiet for long. In early spring, Jace received a call. An oil conglomerate had found minerals under a parcel of land in the north. Millions were on the table, enough to build empires. But accepting it would mean drilling through land that held centuries of untouched wildlife. Sacred tribal grounds. Forests that sang their own songs. Everyone around him said yes. But Jace, he looked at Ellie. "What would your father have done?" she asked gently. He smiled. "He taught me some things are worth more than money. I guess now I know why he lived out here all his life." He turned it down. Just like that. And in that choice, something changed in Ellie. She realized she wasn't just loving a man, she was loving a legacy. A living reminder that character still mattered, that good men still existed, that love could be quiet and strong all at once. Years passed. The diner thrived, not because it expanded, but because it became a legend. People came from miles to sit at the table where the cowboy billionaire once ate breakfast alone. But Jace didn't care for attention. He preferred the back porch, Ellie by his side, a cup of coffee in hand, and the wind telling stories across the field. They never had children. Not because they didn't want to, but because life chose a different path. But together, they raised the town in ways no one could have predicted. They funded art programs, saved the old library, helped young couples buy homes. One summer morning, Jace didn't come in for coffee. Ellie found him out back, sitting under the big oak tree, staring at the horizon. "You all right?" she asked, concerned. He nodded, smiling softly. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how lucky I am." She sat beside him, slipping her hand into his. "You gave this town a second chance, Jace." He shook his head. "You gave it to me. I was just a broken man hiding behind a hat. You looked past everything and offered me warmth. I'll never forget that." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat there for hours, hearts wrapped in silence. That winter, Jace passed away peacefully in his sleep. The entire town mourned. Flags lowered. Shops closed. Candles were lit across every street. He left everything to Ellie, not just the land, but the foundation he'd started in her name, the scholarship fund titled, "The Heart That Saw Me," and a note that read, "Greater than, don't let them forget what love can build when it's quiet, honest, and brave." Years later, children still play in the wildflower field behind the diner. The bench under the oak tree now bears a brass plaque that reads, "He came with dust on his boots, and left with love in his heart." Ellie never remarried. She didn't need to. She had lived a lifetime in those years with Jace. And every morning, just before dawn, she pours 2 cups of coffee. One for herself. One for the man who taught her that sometimes, the richest hearts wear the poorest boots, and that love, when real, never drifts. It stays. Quietly. Forever. If this story moved you even a little, if you've ever believed in quiet love, second chances, or healing after heartache, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. We pour our hearts into every story, and your support helps us keep bringing you hope, love, and warmth. Speech balloon special request. Leave a comment below saying, "Real love sees beyond the surface," if you believe true connection goes deeper than wealth or status. Let's fill the comments with hope.